Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today we're going to talk about the other part, or the other types of cellular respiration. We're going to talk about anaerobic respiration. Right now, if you have not watched the aerobic cellular respiration video, it's a little bit longer because I go into a lot more background detail on some of the stuff. Please stop this video and go back and watch the aerobic. Excuse me, because there's going to be a lot of things I'm just going to kind of go over real fast here. Because I wanted to split up this video so it wasn't 30 minutes. This one's going to be a little bit quicker. So we know that there are two types of cellular respiration. The goal is to take glucose and turn it into usable energy, ATP. We can either, in the presence of oxygen in that mitochondria, just aerobic respiration, right? But not every organism has a mitochondria. And so there's also called anaerobic respiration, which means it's without oxygen. All right. Now, not every, like I said, prokaryotes, by definition, they don't have these extra fancy organelles and functions to be able to do these things, but they are still living organisms, which means they must be able to obtain and use energy. All right. On top of that, even though we have complex eukaryotic cells that have many mitochondria, there are times where our cells run low on oxygen. Anytime you've ever felt very, very exhausted, especially doing strenuous, and your muscles start to burn, that is a sign that your cells have switched into anaerobic respiration. All right? So not all organisms can do anaerobic respiration. It's just some of them that have a mitochondria are able to do aerobic. All right? So in the end, I want you to think about, since you've already watched the aerobic one, I want you to think about what's the same, what's different, right? And also, why is aerobic respiration better than anaerobic? All right, so let's start here. All right, so the whole idea is to take glucose that we formed or that we either obtained if we're a heterotroph by eating, or if you're a plant cell, is you've made it during the chloroplast using photosynthesis, right? And we are going to be starting actually not in the mitochondria, because anaerobic does not take place in the mitochondria. Anaerobic actually takes place in the cytoplasm, and the first reaction actually happens is a reaction called glycolysis, and that's where we're going to break that glucose into two smaller pieces. All right, and so today we're going to talk about the anaerobic respiration and the series of reactions that can happen. All right, so first one we're going to talk about is glycolysis, which, if you watch the previous video, it's actually the same process. So I'm going to go through that pretty fast. If you have not watched that video yet, you need to watch this. This happens in the cytoplasm. Just so you know, I'm writing it right here because I'm going to draw a picture right here. All right. In the cytoplasm. All right. And this process is about taking glucose, that's C6H12O6, all right, and breaking it in half into two pyruvates. Plus pyruvate. Remember, pyruvate is just the name for the molecule of, basically, if we take these 6, 12, and 6 and break it in half into 3, 6, and 3, right? Those are called pyruvates. We're literally breaking it in half. And when it breaks that chemical bond of that glucose, it is going to release some chemical energy that can be then used to reattach a phosphate, more specifically, and recharge two ATPs, ADP back into ATP. All right, but now there are prokaryotic cells that in this reaction, or in aerobic, would have that pyruvates go into a mitochondria. But if we do not have a mitochondria, so in this case here, no mitochondria, all right, no mitochondria. What's going to happen? All the reactions are going to have to take place in the cytoplasm. And so what actually happens is both of those, that glucose goes into glycolysis, it is going to go into a second reaction. All right? It is going to go into a second reaction in the cytoplasm. So we have and it's a reaction called fermentation. All right, so both of these pyruvates are going to be released. So we got two pyruvates there. They leave glycolysis, and then they go into a new chemical reaction called fermentation. There's actually two types of fermentation, which I'm kind of going to talk a little bit about at the same time here. All right. So we have fermentation now. This also happens in the cytoplasm because there is no mitochondria in aerobic respiration or anaerobic respiration. All right. In this case here, we are going to take both pyruvates, are going to go through fermentation. All right, they are going to both go through this process, and then one of two types of fermentation are going to happen. All right, just kind of depends on the organism. All right, you are either going to have just kind of depends on which one you're going to do. It's going to be created here. Both of them are going to break down pyruvate without oxygen, right? It's just going to create CO2, just like it does in the Krebs cycle. Because the Krebs cycle, there's no oxygen. It's over in the matrix that happens. All right, it's going to create carbon dioxide. But along with that carbon dioxide, it's either going to create either alcohol, right? Alcohol is just a chemical compound, right? With whatever's left, right? Or it's going to create a molecule called lactic acid. So that's why we say we have two types of fermentation. There's alcohol fermentation. This is actually, mankind has taken advantage of this kind, is where we take unicellular organisms like yeast, and we let them hang out without oxygen, and it creates carbon dioxide bubbles and alcohol. That's how the first beers were brewed. All right. Or it could be lactic acid, which is the one you feel when your muscles start burning. Your muscles have stopped getting enough oxygen, right? And so it's just going to go through glycolysis and fermentation. There's no oxygen to get that extra reaction that gave us all those extra ATPs, right? And so what we have here, and then of course, either depending which one it is, goes through, you're also going to get, all right, 2 ATP. All right, just depending. So that's not a total of 4, or it's not a total of 6, because it either does alcohol fermentation or it does lactic acid fermentation. So in the end here, kind of doing like we did last time, kind of canceling things out. We start with glucose and we create 2 pyruvates, but we use both those pyruvates, right? And we create CO2, either lactic acid or alcohol, and 2 ATP. So let's put this overall for our anaerobic respiration. Remember, this is going to be without oxygen. All right? So let's put this overall here. So one big difference is none of this is happening in the cytoplasm, or is all happening in cytoplasm. None of it is happening in, cytoplasm, is happening in the mitochondria. Anaerobic is without oxygen, and the products are going to be a little bit different as well. Notice there's no oxygen in my reactants. Just taking glucose and turning it into carbon dioxide I'm going to write them together. Either alcohol or lactic acid, depends what type of fermentation. Alcohol or lactic acid. Depends on the cell, the function. And finally, since to get this reaction to go, I need 2 ATP to make this reaction happen. I would count as saying if I did alcohol fermentation, it'd be 4 ATP, but I needed 2 to start. So I would actually have a net of 2 ATP. A net of 2 ATP. So in aerobic respiration, when we had oxygen, which happened in the mitochondria, we had a net of 36 ATPs. Remember, ATPs are like the batteries, right? We recharge 36 ATPs compared to in this process that just happens in the cytoplasm without oxygen and no mitochondria, we only get a net of 2 ATP. Way less efficient, all right, in terms of energy output. All right, that's going to be it for this video here. So think about it. I want you to go back and I want you to look at your notes and you should see 3 differences. And I talked about just some kind of over talking. 3 major differences between anaerobic and aerobic respiration. See if you can find those 3. All right, otherwise, good luck. Thank you very much for watching. Good luck, and may the science be with you.